Here's a new AC cord we'll be using. Looks more period correct with the cloth cover. Put these old original style filter caps back in. Welcome back to the basement shop and part 2 of the restoration on the 1931 Philco Model 70 radio. In part 1 we checked the tubes, determined that we did have some B+ voltage after bridging in an electrolytic, but we had no signal, no sound, and we determined that the coil was open. So let's take that thing out and see if we can either repair it, rewind it, get another one, whatever we have to do. Okay, all the wires unhooked. And we just loosen this screw. This is the open winding, no resistance. And it's this lower winding right here, because it looks like this wire comes out of this terminal, goes in right here, and then the other one goes up here, circles back, but see, that's connected to the top of this. We just got to find where the break is. No luck. This coil has the typical corrosion. You can see that green looking stuff. The end of the wire after the coil was wound, it came to a point here and it went right down diagonally down to this terminal. And as I started to unwind this, when I would get to that point, that's when the wire would break. I think that's where most of the heavy corrosion was. But anyway, I'm going to try to rewind this. Here's the installation. See where it starts and stops. Just wrapped around this coil. That's a secondary. It's fine. So I've been unwrapping this. Get the rest of this unwrapped. It's like it's a little bit right in there. I've done this before on another Philco. Here's what I'm going to use. I think it's close enough to the same gauge as the old that it should work. We're going to try it and see. Okay, I hope we're close to what the old winding was as far as turns, and I know we do have resistance, 19.8 ohms. And the secondary, 4.8. Is that right? We're about to find out. Back in, hooked up. Now, do we have voltage? Yes, we do. 210 volts. Well, that's a definite improvement. There's a station that's normally really hard to get. It's 1400. Not the strongest, but it's picking it up. There's 700. I think we could call that a success. Well, that's the second time I've had to rewind a coil. I'm not an expert at it by no means, but hey, it worked. So now, these electrolytics, I'm going to pull these out and look at the mount. This used originally the 2 caps with the big nuts on the bottom. I'm just going to make sure, and we'll figure out something to make it look a little better on the top of the chassis, more period correct. I'm about to get this figured out. All right, the ground wires, or the ground terminals, I should say, on these 2 caps, the electrolytics, doesn't go to ground. It goes over to this resistor network. Terminal 5 goes to ground. Then it's 240 ohms to terminal 6, which connects to the ground terminals of these caps. And this wire that goes to the 240 ohm resistor here, it also connects to a resistor that goes up to the number 47 tube right here. 240,000 ohm resistor. So we have to connect our minus terminal of the filter cap right here, and then the plus terminal will go on both sides of this filter choke, which is right here. And that's those wires. There's one going to the rectifier tube, and this one that's been cut, it comes around and runs to the speaker jack. Well, these were an aftermarket cap. It's an 8 mic, 600 volts peak. Wow, that was a hefty cap back in its day. It came with this cardboard sleeve that went on those terminals, and you just put them 3 nuts on the studs, tighten it down. It's like you're seeing on that other one down there. Never seen a replacement made like that before. So I'm assuming this is really old. This is an industrial condenser from Chicago. No date. That CO4 might mean something, but I don't know what it means. So this was the one that wasn't shorted. We'll just see if it still tests okay. Now this one, the first one, that was the one that was completely shorted. Looks like that one that wasn't shorted still on its last leg. We're on 300 volts. Light stays on. Gets even brighter as you increase the voltage. Goes off on 200, so it's definitely bad, leaky. Let's check it and see if the capacitance tests correct. Red scale should be right in here. There's a 8. There's 4, so in that area. It's trying to open, the pie is, but not really. That's in between 4 and 8, so it's bad. All right, I have a plan together. See that hole right there in the chassis? I'm going to mount a terminal strip like that. I only need 3 terminals for these caps. We'll tie the grounds to the second terminal. We got a positive lead here and another positive lead right here. So I'm just going to snip them 2 off. We don't need them. I'm pretty sure the end of this resistor lead will go over here enough to where it will connect to the terminal strip. Then we can connect this wire to the same terminal along with the 2 grounds of the caps. And then the positive leads, we'll run a new wire from the terminal over to the speaker jack. And we'll run a new wire from a terminal down to the rectifier tube. So I'm gonna get all of this taken care of, and then I'll show you what it looks like once I'm finished. Both caps hooked up. Just used a 1/4 inch head screw, screwed through that hole in the chassis to mount the terminal strip. Resistor did reach to the center. And positive lead going down to the rectifier tube. Positive lead, that yellow wire, going over to the speaker jack. Now, this resistor should be 240K. I think the schematic says 0.24 meg R29. And I did check it before I reused it. And we're at 245K. So nothing wrong with that. Still working. I'm going to replace this wire that goes to the tone control. It's brittle. We'll pull this tone control out, replace the cap that's inside it too, and put a new wire on it. Okay, just a nut and a washer. Held it in. There's what's left of the cap and the insulation there that went on the inside. So now we just need to clean this up a little, and we'll mount us a new cap in there. Tone control is fixed. That's a new wire. Time to restuff the Bakelite assemblies. Lots of ways this can be done. I'm going to be pulling them out. Just remove the leads, take them out, remove the inside, put a new cap in, reinstall it. I like the look of that better than just, a lot of guys disconnect the leads and then just put caps on the outside. My preference, I don't like the look of that, so we'll be pulling each of these out. I'm going to start with this cap here that's coming in from the AC cord going to the primary of the transformer. I'll show you how I do it, and then I won't bore you by showing you every one that I do. I removed the AC cord that they had on the radio. We're going to put one that looks more like it period correct. So we just cut the 2 leads going to the transformer. So let's get this pulled out. Look like that. It's trying to push its way out of the housing there. A fairly simple way to get these apart. Just take a rivet. It'll fit right down in those 3 holes. Just keep tapping. Break up that tar that they put in there. Puts a little split in it. Yeah, you may go through a few rivets doing this because they'll bend. But once you do that, you can see it just pushes those caps loose. And a pretty simple way of getting them apart. Here's a new AC cord we'll be using. Looks more period correct with the cloth cover. New cord, new caps, hook back up. And I did put a grommet where the cord runs through, and a knot to prevent it from moving any. Let's test it, make sure we're okay.
Trim around. ABC's Karen Travers is with us from the White And what a moment for Melania Trump.
I'm going to move on. We'll get all these restuffed. While I was replacing these caps in the networks, this one mounts right here. Here's the old cap inside. Slightly larger 0.5 that I had. But that's a little bit different than the Bakelite assemblies. Just finished up all the caps in the Bakelite networks and these two. So that's all finished. We're ready to move on to the speaker. All right, let's figure out what we can do here on these speaker wires. Not very safe. Here's what I'm going to be using. This is 20 gauge wire. I think if we drill the rivets out on the transformer, pull it loose enough to get the new wires put in, I'll take a meter, determine which wires go to which pins from end to end, and hopefully we can just feed them back down through those pins without taking this plug apart. Because again, that could be drilled out, but what do you put back that looks right? We'll drill this out first. Well, that wasn't too bad. Them are pretty beefy rivets. There's underneath the head of them. But we've got the transformer loose. Now I need to disconnect these two wires where we can flip it over. We have a terminal loose here. When we get this finished up, we want to make sure we glue that back. I think that'll get us into the three wires. One here, here, and here. Take the meter, make sure we identify the black wire from this end to which pin it goes to. And I'm going to try to just desolder the three wires, pull them out, and hopefully feed the new wires down through there. As to the colors I'm going to be using, we know one of them is black with a white tracer, but these other two, they just look brown. I don't see any difference in them. One black wire, two brown wires. So I'm going to work on this end first. We may need a new grommet here. I'm going to look it over once I get these wires out. The black wire goes here. We'll get it unhooked. Now we'll pull this wire out of the grommet. Really stiff where it's been in a bend for its whole life. That takes care of the black wire. Wow, I think that grommet, I think it was bad. Now I'll install the three new wires and I'll show you when I'm finished what it looks like. Threaded screws with nuts, and how I to get the nut on there, I use tape. Put the nut on the tape, held it in place and started to screw. Temporarily hook this up. Just make sure it still works.
He's a trader, was a former American League All-Star outfield.
Now let's tackle this plug. Thread wrapped around all three of the wires, so I need to get that cut loose. Otherwise, when you pull on one of these, you're pulling on all of them. Okay, now they should be loose. Well, finally, you can see what the problem is. That hole in the top of the plug, luckily it didn't break, but that hole where the wires go in at the top of the plug, it's straight. And you can't even see the pins. So you can see the wire goes straight and then it goes left or right depending on which wire you're putting in. So I've got an idea. I'm going to take the Dremel tool and we're going to relieve some of that, the back of that, where we can at least see the 3 pins we're trying to solder to. Okay, now I think you can see what I've done. Now I can see those 3 pins. I believe we can get the wires in there now. Okay, there's the plug. I think that turned out pretty well. Next we're going to work on these grommets here that hold the tuning gang in. There are 3 of them. 1, 2, 3. The rubber's dried out, so we're going to put some new ones on that. Here's the old rubber grommet that goes around those metal sleeves. Here's what I'm going to be using on top of the chassis. These have sticky back on them, so we can just peel that paper off, stick them where they belong on the chassis. And while I had this off, cleaned underneath it. And new rubber washers or rubber grommets on the bottom. Much better. Working good, and now we're tuning gangs tight. Yeah, I think them were bad. That's what's left of what I could dig out. The rest of them were in such small pieces. Thought I'd do a little cleaning on the chassis. And we're looking better. It's not going to be a museum piece, but get as clean as I can. This dial, these are available new, but I've been cleaning on this on the back side. You got to really be careful with the front of these because you could rub the numbers off really easy. So just been cleaning the back side. See our station indicators shining up pretty well now. And just a little paint touch up on the speaker. And these cardboard spacers here, that's just glue where I've glued them back in. They were broken up, so I found most of the pieces. One more thing to do on the chassis before we start on the cabinet work, and that's to put these old original style filter caps in. These are just for looks, so let's see what we can come up with here. We'll unsolder the wires on these terminals. We'll put all this back because we want it to look original, but nothing will be hooked up. And before we put these in, we're going to do some cleaning on them. Shine them up. Hopefully they'll look as good as the tops of them coils. Just using some steel wool. All right. Looking a lot better. Clean these washers with the terminals. And the insulators. They look a little darker now, so look better. So the way these go in, you have an insulator first, and then the washer with the terminal on it, and then the cap, and then we put the washer and the nut underneath to hold the cap. There's the 2 nuts and washers. And there's the two caps. All right, chassis is completed. So, you know what's next. We got to do something with that cabinet. We hope you've enjoyed the video. And if you did, how about giving us a like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks.